bin ich ja stets lustig als Sauzaza. Ich Vogelfänger bin bekannt, bei alt und jung im ganzen Land.
No way. Hey, what's up guys? Tim Baltz here with another episode of Author Talk, and I am excited tonight, guys. You know, I was having a long day, and like I do after a long day, I just like to come home and read some intense classic American literature. And I picked up some Ralph Waldo Emerson today, and oh my god, my mind's blown. Now you're probably asking, who is this guy? Why is he so important? Well, let me tell you. He was one of the key writers of the philosophy of transcendentalism. Transcendentalism, that's an awfully big word. What does that mean? You're talking crazy stuff now, Tim. No, I'm not. I'm going to tell you what it is. It's a theory where you see the good in people and the purity of nature. And it, as a whole, the movement feels that institutions, including organized religion, corrupts this purity that is found in human nature itself. And, you know, the movement did favor logic and thinking. There's no doubt about that. It didn't promote dogmatic recollections that you've been told since you were a kid. It really wanted people to think for yourself, or for their selves. But it favored logic, but not just cold logic. It also favored intuition. The intuition, the gut feelings, the ideas that seem to come out of nowhere. It values those perhaps even more than logic, and in Emerson's writings you can really see his argument for this, including nature and others. But what I read tonight was a great piece called The American Scholar. Now I think this is important for a lot of students to read nowadays because, you know, we've been taught since elementary school how to follow rules. You know, we memorize our history facts, we memorize our math problems, everything's just memory, so we recall it on a test, we get an A, we go to college, boom, boom, boom. Guess what? You may think you're accomplishing something if you're being glib like that, but according to Emerson and according to this guy right here, you're not accomplishing anything. It's important to have practicality and real-life skills that can be applied to an arena of life. Now, in The American Scholar, Emerson talks about, and it stresses the point a lot, that academics and scholars and people that are learning should not be constrained by old ideas written in some old textbook and old theories that are thought to solve old problems. He strongly believed that the new class, the new young adults that will soon be running society need to think for themselves and need to come up with current solutions for current problems. And he also stressed the point that being a reclusive academic is really no life at all. You need to get out there in the world, you need to understand the world so you can apply what you've learned at school in the real world. Now in the passages you can also definitely notice the transcendentalist thought of spontaneity being important. Emerson really feels that the ideas that are spawned off by instinct from within at the right moment will be the best solution available. And he warns against being a bookworm. That's someone that just reads books, you know, might be able to recollect that knowledge, but doesn't know how to apply it to their own life and to the world around them. Now, I would actually like to go through some of the quotes and some of the lines in The American Scholar, and I want to show you my interpretation of these lines and how I drew the conclusions of what I read. Now, early on in the text, Emerson writes, "Man is not a farmer, or a professor, or an engineer, but he is all. In the divided or social state, these functions are parceled out to individuals, each of whom aims to do his stint of the joint work, whilst each other performs his." Now that's a bit of a meaty quote, but let me tell you my interpretation. What I think he's saying here is, when a person as an individual is not just one thing, it's not just one static character. They're dynamic, and they have many talents and many skills that could be applied to many places. So, you know, society says, you know, what do you want to do when you grow up when you're a kid? And what they're really asking is, what do you want to destine yourself for? What is the one track you just want to follow the rest of your life? Emerson would not like that. He would say people have a municipality of functions, and that all of their functions that come within should be explored. Now, one of the main points Emerson writes about is how the guide is a tyrant. And he goes on to say that books are the best of things when well used, abused among the worst. And what this means is books have use and utility if they're nurturing your mind. But if you became, as he says, a parrot of other men's thinking, you're not being cognizant of your own ideas and you're just becoming a static intellectual. The line, man thinking must not be subdued by his instruments, also goes back to the point that the thinking man, the true thinking man, does not become a slave to what he has learned. Now, Emerson definitely criticizes the current state of academia at the time. He writes, in this distribution of functions, the scholar is a delegated intellect. In the right state, he is man thinking. In the degenerate state, he is the victim of society. He tends to become a mere thinker, or still worse, the parrot of other men's thinking. And Emerson said that, as I mentioned before, that this just cannot stand. This is not really thinking. You're just becoming a parrot of old ideas that will not apply for the modern problems. Now, this criticism of academia isn't just Emerson's. It's actually a lot of what working class society saw of academics. And I think today there's a lot of parallels. We hear a lot about in politics about how, some people feel that the elitists have taken over. And there's probably some truth to that. They feel that the high-educated, the people in politics, the people in those white-collar positions are just out of touch with them. And, I think there's definitely tidbits of truth to that, although I think it could be overly exaggerated. Obviously, all intellectuals aren't evil and want all the working people of the world to be eliminated. That would be a disaster. Anyone who believes that is crazy. Now, Emerson backs this up by saying, there goes in the world a notion that the scholar should be a recluse, unfit for any handiwork or public labor. These so-called practical men sneer at the speculative men. Now, as I said, I think he was criticizing or bringing up the criticism of how intellectuals are seen as reclusive and in their own ivory towers, not associating with the rest of the world. But he does respect the speculative man, the man that thinks. But he says you need to apply that speculation. And I feel that if you're just a thinking man not doing anything with their life except sitting and maybe reading, but not getting your hands, dirty or not dirty, but hands roughed up with the real world and that real taste of fresh air, I agree with him and I agree with a lot of people in society. You're not producing anything. Now, I can really relate to The American Scholar, written by Emerson. I'm 24 now, and I'm pretty much starting back up at my post-high school schooling. It's been a little bit of a long road. I was kind of a superstar in high school. Not really a superstar, but, I had good grades. I ended up going to a small private school, preparatory. I hated it, but whatever. That's the past now. I had hand-fed a lot of facts, and I was doing real well on this, the test, and, my grades were just great. SATs were alright, but I did pretty well in the ACTs, and I got a scholarship to a small school in Pennsylvania called Susquehanna, and, I thought I was interested in politics at the time, and, I went to college with the wrong motivations. I thought I was smarter than a lot of people, and I went to college in a very working class area, so, I walked like this, I'm so smart than these rednecks, but the truth is, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. I was just wasting time there. I wasn't really interested in what I was studying, and I found that out pretty soon on, but, I just kept going because it was familiar to me, and, I guess I just didn't want to make the change, but there's definitely nothing of passion there, and, So I just kind of was running on a treadmill for 3 years. I actually made it 3 years. But I was not even a student, to be honest. I was using drugs heavily. I was partying, not focused on my skipping class. No big deal, man. And eventually it caught up to me. I got some disciplinary stuff, I had to leave. But it was probably the best thing that I had to do because I took that time off from just hitting the books because I was told to do. Everyone in my family was like very smart, and I was following the path, that I thought I was supposed to follow, but apparently it just wasn't for me. So what I did is I left school. I was asked to leave, but I left. It was a good thing, like I said, and I just started working those working class jobs, in restaurants. I started scrubbing dishes, and then I became a host, and then I became a server. And then I became a server at a fancier restaurant. And, I was making money. I didn't know what I would get every day. I'm sure a lot of you are servers. You know how it is. But it was a lot of work. It was really matured me a little bit. Actually, a lot of it. And, that's not something I got from school. I got to associate with those, as Emerson describes, the practical men and women. And it was good. I definitely learned some skills that I didn't have, and that continued when I moved myself down to Florida. It was a crazy time down there, but and I was just working restaurant jobs, telemarketing. I still wasn't ready for school because I didn't know what I wanted to do. But then I finally had kind of a realization that came from within. This wasn't something that was told to me, and I started getting an idea of what I'm good at and what I'm motivated by. And, I finally discovered that, I'm very, I'm obviously, not obviously, but I'm pretty book smart. And I wanted to, I knew that I had a skill that I was wasting. And I knew that if I applied what I learned in the practical world and then actually took seriously what I could learn in the academic world, I could become a full man and really contribute to the world, because that's what I'm really motivated about doing. And that's why now I'm going to get my associates in psychology, and then hopefully soon, fingers crossed, I will either study psychology or social work at VCU, because I really do want to help the world. My passion is helping those who are less fortunate, and I'm still politically motivated, but I'm not sacrificing my life to politics. And I think Emerson would like how I found my own passion of social work and psychology and helping the developing mind really tackle the world's problems in present time by not using some old knowledge or some old theories that some counselor ran out of the book. I want people to think for themselves, and I want to help people think for themselves. And that's what I want to do as a career. Well, that concludes today's episode of Author Talk. I hope you enjoyed learning about Emerson. I can tell you I enjoyed reading his work. Very mind-opening. Stay tuned for more episodes of Author Talk. This is Tim Baltz, and I'm looping out.
You're bunny.